Alright, hello everyone. I am going to show you how to do a hip carry with the Xoxo Buckle Wrap. And I think this one would be kind of equivalent to a coolest hip carry, maybe an inside out coolest. Not 100% sure. But it's a good little hip carry in the Xoxo Buckle Wrap at least. So if you've not seen this carrier out on the market, it has a very unstructured waistband with a buckle, which is really nice and exciting for people that are kind of wrap curious but aren't really ready to take the plunge into wrapping, because it has that already built in and that nice added security of having that there. And then you have two wrap panels that come up from the waistband that sort of form the body of the carrier. So to do this particular carry, you're going to start with your waistband, sort of fold it in, and you're going to aim it towards your hip, and the wide part of the panel is going to go where you want your baby to be sitting on your hip. I like to have it buckled at sort of my natural waist, where my body has a natural kind of curvature to the waist. If you are wearing a toddler, you can put it a little bit lower down onto your actual hips, which is a perk of having the unstructured waistband. You can kind of put it on your torso wherever you're comfortable. So the first thing I'm going to do is just snug up my waistband. You want it to be fairly snug onto your body so that way it's not pulling out and down, because if that happens then it tends to be a little bit more uncomfortable after a short point in time. So I hold with one hand and just kind of snug my hand onto the waistband and kind of press in, and then with the other hand pull the opposite direction on the waistband, which snugs the buckle up pretty nicely. So from here I'm going to start with my innermost panel. And with my innermost panel, I'm going to take that top edge of that top rail and flip it under my arm, across my back, and pull it to the other shoulder. So it's just going to come over the other shoulder onto my body. And I'm going to use that as my first cross pass to put my baby in right here. As you can see, it makes a little bit of a cross pass seat. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my baby and just sort of feed them down into that pass. If you want to hold this snug, like in between your legs, in between your thighs or your knees while you work on getting the baby in, you can definitely do that. So I am going to grab baby and put them up over my opposite arm and shoulder, and then feed my other hand through the inner panel of that seat, and just one leg guided through to where they're getting pulled through to that cross pass that I made. And I'm going to take my top rail, pull it across my baby's body so that way it comes up to about the nape of the neck. If they're really going to struggle to get arms out, you can have it low down to about, armpit level, but to start out I like to try to get it a little bit higher. And with my bottom pass, I'm just going to make sure that it is secured knee to knee on my baby, so that way my baby's nice and well supported. So after I have the baby situated into my carrier here, get my baby's clothing situated, then I'm going to snag it up a little bit by taking both sides or the whole sort of rail and pulling it out, sort of out and up away from my body and up in the air. And that's going to secure everything down sort of nice and tight. If you feel like you have a little bit of slack and want to do a strand by strand tightening, you'll just take one rail, sort of pull the middle, sort of pull and snag, bottom, pull and snag, and just kind of keep working at it until you have it in a tightness that you prefer. So I don't like to fiddle with it too much, because if you're not an actual experienced wrapper and you're just sort of learning the XOXO, you don't really have to fight to get it snug or really work out the slack, which is kind of nice. So from here, I am going to take and pass that back down underneath my body, or my legs, to hold it in place again. Well, actually first I'm going to pass this piece underneath it, sorry. So I'm going to take the inner piece, I'm going to do the same thing by pulling it up over baby's body. Make sure that we're knee to knee on both sides, up over baby's back with the top rail. And I'm just going to do the same by passing it under my arm and again around my body so it crosses across my back. And then I like to pull it up and completely out the other direction to work out the slack on that side. So it's going to go up over my shoulder just for a second to kind of pull it up and tight. You just sort of work out your slack that way. And then I'm going to drop it back down underneath my arm and continue to kind of pull and work out a little bit of that slack there. So from here, I'm going to spread it across the baby's body and tuck that bottom rail underneath their seat a little bit. And then I'm just going to tie, I can tie a double knot if I just prefer to tie a double knot right here, or I can tie a slip knot. So I'm going to take that short rail, pass it under and over, and then cross it around and through to make a slip knot. I like the slip knot because it's a little bit easier to tighten things up. So you're actually done with the carry at this point. I usually end up with a longer tail on this side, so I tend to wrap it back around, and you can just kind of snug it up and tuck it underneath, and it usually stays in place. Or you can also take and just kind of do a little single knot to hold the tails in place too, so that way you don't have long tails everywhere, but it's really what you want to do kind of from that point. If you don't have long tails, then you really don't have to worry about it either. So from there, that would be another variation of a hip carry in the XOXO Buckle Wrap. So there you go.